93 WIBC, it is Terry Stacy. You may remember local author Scott Baker Sweeney from right here in central Indiana, from the west side, who joined us not long ago to talk about his novel, which was, oh my goodness, I've got them right here in my hand, and I've got two of them now, which are really cool. But the first one we talked about was I Was Never Afraid. And listen, thank you, Mark, for coming back, or Scott, for coming back in.
Thank you.
Really nice to meet you, and good things are happening. At that time, he said there was some interest in talking about maybe doing something with his books and turning them into films. And so it is good to have Scott Baker Sweeney with us this morning. This new story is The Tears of Mary, which I hold in my left hand. And this, again, is out right now. Is that correct?
Well, actually, no. That was I wrote that book
How long
3
ago?
or 4 years ago.
The Tears of Mary.
Yeah, the new release is I Was Never Afraid, and I brought you that copy just today. But we're not here to talk about that. I'm just very excited. Maybe that's another show down the road. But
you've got good news about this story.
Yeah. Well, I'll let Mark jump in at any time. But I wrote this a few years ago, and it's about an Indiana boy that grew up on a farm, and he had aspirations to go to Notre Dame, and he ended up going. His roommate was from Dublin, was from Dublin, Ireland. They become good friends in school. The Irish boy tells the Indiana boy something about his family, about the Irish boy's family, and it turns into a paper and breaks up the friendship. I'm pleased to announce that M&E Films shares my interest in taking this to the next step, making it a film, and my fans are excited about it too.
Joining us on the phone is Mark Potts, and he's producer with M&E Films, very busy with his latest film called Turbulent. Mark, thank you for joining us this morning. How are you?
I'm doing amazing. How are you guys?
We're good. So listen, just before we get into this particular story, The Tears of Mary, Turbulent, plane crash movie, I'll tell you what, it in itself looks pretty fantastic.
Yes, we did that movie. A network called Parables TV, which is owned by Olympusat, came to us to make that movie, and we made it for them, and it was supposed to be, originally it was going to be on their own network. Their network is a streaming network, much like, Netflix and Hulu and all of them, and it came out so good, they decided that it was worth more than that. So it's actually in negotiations right now with a major player that I can't name yet, but it's in that ballpark and down in Atlanta getting scored, and down in Florida getting color corrected and made look all pretty and all that kind of good stuff. So,
well, you found Scott Baker Sweeney and his story that he wrote a while back called The Tears of Mary. Phenomenal book. Tell us what you like about The Tears of Mary.
Well, what stuck out to me, I work in the family and inspirational genre. That's mostly what I do. I also get, asked to DP other projects and things, but my focus is on that. And when I read the book, what was really interesting to me was its uniqueness in the genre that it kind of can appeal to. And that's a wide genre because it really is kind of non-genre in general. It's just a good action, love story, mystery, intrigue, all those things. But it's just very unique. When I pitched it to a director that I work with a lot, Chip Rossetti and Rossetti Productions, and I said, the thing I like about this is I call it plausible fiction, because if there's a part of the story that, for all we know, that could be true. One day I was sitting here and I said, maybe Scott knows something we don't. Maybe I need to talk to Scott a little closer because, the more I think about this and I read the story and I'm like, this, who knows?
I know.
There's crazier things. We've got things to, biblical history, Ark of the Covenant, and all these things that exist. And I thought, well, who knows? This could be plausible. That we just don't know, and so that intrigues there, and I think that intrigues the audience. I think watching this film because of its high action volume and its mystery, that you also step back and look at it and go, wow, that kind of almost could make sense in the real world. That could be something, and I think today's audiences are that way. We're finding that more and more that. While they want to do movies for an escape and they want to go see films and escape a little bit from what our world has going on right now, and let's face it, it's daily, it's just always something that's just horrific going on. And, but I think they also are at a point where they want a bit of reality as well. They don't want to be so detached that it's like this is just total fantasy. And I think that's what Tears of Mary is so great, is that the whole story, the intrigue, the love story, all of the things that are there are just things that viewers are going to attach to. Those characters are so easy to attach to when you read the book, and you just snag right onto them. And that's a win-win for both authors and filmmakers, because we have to get those, people to attach to those characters as quickly as possible and hang in there. So,
yeah. No, you're right. That's Mark Potts, producer with ME Films. Scott Baker Sweeney also joins us, the author of the novel, The Tears of Mary. Where'd this idea come from?
I can't explain where any of my ideas come from, but they just kind of pop into my head and I go with it. This was something that I wanted to write about, make a hero or heroine from something that people can relate with from here in the Midwest, from Indiana. This is kind of inspired by lots of real people and my characters. And, I become very close with my characters, too, and I become close with the stories. And one thing about Mark, I think he gets that, and he understands that they're kind of like your own children. And, I kind of felt safe with this movie, or with this book, turning it to the next stage and handing it over to Mark, because I know he understands it and he gets it. I guess he shares my passion that we've connected.
Mark, Scott tells me that ME Films has moved The Tears of Mary to the next in line for production. So what does that mean? Yeah,
it's actually, we're working on all the details right now to try to get this thing on the 2018 schedule. We just, of course, we finished Turbulent. The film before that was called Saving Faith, which Lionsgate bought. That'll be out in the spring of 2018, being released through Lionsgate. And we just have a lot of interest from a lot of the studios in this type of project, especially when it falls into that family and inspirational group, because I think people are getting a little tired of the, and I'm trying to figure out how to word this, just the very telegraphed and easy to figure out.
Oh, there you go. That's a
family inspirational film. Things don't always in this genre. They tend to paint a picture that I don't feel is real to life. A lot of times, that things just kind of fall in place if you do this and you do that and all these, and that's just not real life. I can attest to that at 50 years old. It's just not. I can do my best and plan my best and be my best and still fail miserably. It's just the way that it is. And I think that the uniqueness of this book in that area is that it paints a very real picture. It paints a very honest, real picture that's entertaining. It's intriguing. It makes you think. It keeps you engaged. It's not something that you're going to get 15 minutes in and go, oh, I see where this is going. This is, I already know what's going to happen. He's marrying her. This is going there. They find this. Okay, so I'm just going to go on and grab some dinner. I'm done.
Yeah. It takes a lot for us. It takes a lot for audiences now to be stimulated in some sort of way, because we're almost numb to it, because we've got things in our hands we can watch it. I mean,
you're fighting for so much time.
You really are.
And everybody's got limited time.
Yeah, it's right. Our attention span is so short.
Yes, and like you said, it's so accessible these days with, I've got a lot of friends that do stuff with Netflix and Hulu, and I mean, they're just popping out new series and new projects just so fast, and it's just like they're just inundating the market. And eventually what happens is if it doesn't stick out and it doesn't pop, or they don't put the marketing behind it, it just gets lost in the shuffle because there's so much. It's not like the old days in the 40s where movies were, 2 big movies came out a year and it was a big to-do. Now they're just literally coming out daily and multiples. So I think, we felt like this was a project that the studios that we deal with and that we work with that are coming to us and saying, because we have them now coming to us and going, okay, what do you got? What do you got that's different than everything else that's out there that, because for them, I mean, to be honest, they don't care if it's a horror, inspirational, family, drama. They don't care. All they care about is how much money can they make on it and how much money, their return on their investment. So for them, that's all it is. And so they're looking for uniqueness in demographic markets. They're looking for something that sticks out and will pull that market in. And this does that. Just hands down, it does it. So right now we're in the process. Chip Rossetti is going to be directing it with Rossetti Productions. He has been working on the script. Him and Scott and I have been working on things for probably a couple months now. We've been back and forth on some stuff, getting here towards the end of the year, and with Turbulent slowed us down a little bit. But we're just gearing up for it, and we're working on getting all the funding in place and getting all that stuff lined up that you have to do. And because that whole business has changed as well and changed how we make movies and how they're funded and done. So just kind of a bunch of wheels in motion, getting it ready to figure out. Chip and I've done a lot of location scouting to be able to try to shoot this film possibly here, but still, get the same feel as if we were in Ireland, if that helps with the budget some. I've also talked to some people in Ireland about actually shooting it in Ireland. So we've got a lot of wheels in motion right there on the project.
That was going to be my next question, is because I know that Scott wanted to, at least at the beginning of the story, to be filmed in Indiana, maybe up around Notre Dame, and it sounds like that's what you'd like to do too, if at all possible. But again, you got a lot of stuff going on all at once to get this thing just to begin. Selecting actors. When you read this story, Mark, did you kind of see different actors in different parts? Is that the way you think? I obviously when we read these things, when you're putting stuff together, you have that immediate A-list that pops in your head and like, boy, I'd love to get that person, or I'd love to get this, because they just bring that that notoriety to the project. Yeah. And again, for the studios, that's what they're looking for. It's funny, they create a lot of DVD covers in stores, and you might have a star in a film that is only in it for 5 minutes, but they'll put them on the cover. They do that because when you walk down the aisle and you see that person on the cover, I'll take this movie, they're in it. And you start thinking of that. But then also, again, that's changed as well, where it's not so much necessary anymore. So Scott and I've talked about this. We've even discussed using Scott's son as one of the actors in it, because he certainly fits that bill. For sure. So, we start that process. I think right now we're at the point where we're trying to get some script stuff done and get converting a book into a movie is a process, because you're going from however many pages Tears of Mary is, I don't remember off the top of my head, down to 90 pages, 95 pages. Wow. And in a book like Tears of Mary, where Scott really put in a lot of detail. Granted, a lot of that comes across visually versus having to be described out in words. But it's a lot to cut down and not lose any story. It's just a very difficult thing. And so that's what Chip's working on, is making sure that the movie is true to the book. A lot of movies are not. If you go and read a book, I'm sure you all have done this, you read a book and then you go see the movie and you're like, wait, they missed so much. Yeah. Like there's not even close to the book. And we don't want to do that with this story, because I do feel like this story has the potential. One of the things we're looking at is to be more franchise based, to where this is not a one-off film, but because of the characters in it and the way that the story goes, this could be something that continues into multiple films, all along the same storyline with the same character as the lead character. So we want to be very careful with that. Scott Baker Sweeney, author of the novel The Tears of Mary, and obviously from right here in Indianapolis. This must be a dream come true.
It is. It seems like that I never considered this when I started writing, and I just wanted to write, and it was released for me. I used to love to read, and or still love to read. I was figuring out my the story plots and lines, and I was getting bored with my favorite authors that put out a novel every 6 months, and I wrote these things, and then I started getting competitive when I had lots of people start liking that, and I began my fan base would grow and grow and grow, and then I started getting people into the Hollywood types in the film industry interested in it too. I thought, maybe I got something here. I guess initially I never dreamed it would go this far, and just quickly I want to reach out to, I would like a big Indiana and to use actors here in town or in Indiana, sure. But I like to have a lot of the film being shot here. But if you're an Indiana business, I would love for you to get a hold of us. You can Google me, you can Google Mark, you can get a hold of the studio. Terry could put you into contact with us. And
Mark, we are planning on shooting a lot of it. I think we've done enough location scouting, enough things that I think we found some pretty unique spots that I think can keep the movie shot here in the United States and even relatively locally to Indiana and Ohio specifically. And which is what we want to do. I mean, obviously, I want to translate what he has in the book of Ireland, but we found some pretty unique locations that I thought pretty much capture Ireland that I didn't even know about uniquely in and around Ohio. So
I think that's the job I want. Now that we're talking and I'm thinking about my future, I'm thinking
when you grow up,
when I grow up, I want the job of the guy that goes out and looks for locations. That's got to be a pretty good job.
It's actually a very lucrative career if you're good at it and you're able to secure those, because it is sometimes very difficult when directors and directors of photography like myself are looking for a specific barn or specific look, and it's a matter of people do. I mean, people are paid very well to go out and find those, negotiate with the family that owns that land. Hey, we'll pay you this much to use it, or and it's a relatively lucrative career if you're good at it.
Okay, now listen. So, what is that job called when I go to apply for it?
That is a location scout, and then once the movie starts, you become the location manager.
Oh,
and so then we hire you on, and so you're the one that's going location, getting everything ready to go. So when the trucks roll in, we're ready to go. So
I'm really
you're hired.
This would be really a good thing for me.
I think I can envision an actress or an actor in the movie
I don't know.
character.
I don't know. That's exactly what I'm thinking. I'm seeing her more in a role than I am.
How's your Irish brogue?
It's very bad, so I would be awful at that as a narrator or anything. But I like this location scout thing going on. That's a good one.
It's a good thing. And like Scott said, we are looking for people that want to get involved. And I also own a nonprofit called Family and Inspirational Content Group, and that's what we do. The nonprofit is simply a way that people can help continue to make these movies that have a positive message, that are great stories, and we've been very blessed. We have a lot of people from around the country that donate to the nonprofit, and all of that money goes strictly to just making projects. We do not pay ourselves out of that. We do not do any administrative fees like many do and things like that. Dollar for dollar, we put it into movies, and we've even got a couple of television series on tap right now that we're negotiating with some networks on. So if anyone's interested in that, they can always they can call me if they want. It's 502-797-6087. I'm out of Louisville, Kentucky, so I'm not too far.
And my books are available anywhere books are sold. Amazon, Barnes & Noble's, Books A Million.
Mark Potts, what a pleasure to meet you. Really, I mean it.
You.
Thank you for all the time you gave to us today. We wish you guys the best of luck and hope that if there's anything we can ever do to help you, surely let us know. Scott Baker Sweeney, again, thank you for coming by to see us, and we're going to take a break now. You're listening to The First Day on 93 WIBC.